of the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council. I'm Karthik Balasubramanian, the chair. This council focuses on advocating for folks with disabilities. I identify as someone who has a disability. I've got an eye condition called macular degeneration that makes it hard for me to see and also impossible for me to drive, which puts me squarely in the majority of people with disabilities with people without a car. So I'll pass it over to Kelly Mack to introduce herself, and then if you can pass it on to the next person, Kevin.
Sounds good. Hi everyone, Kelly Mack. I am a DC resident. Also identify as disabled since childhood. I use a motorized wheelchair for my mobility and for getting around the town. And I will pass it along to Elizabeth.
Hi everyone, my name is Lizzie Reagan. I'm a DC resident and a manual wheelchair user. I identify as a person with a disability. And I am a community member of MAAC. I will pass it over to Zachary.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Zach Smith, liaison to the MAAC, also the Equity and Accessibility Analyst at the District Department of Transportation. And I will pass it to my colleague, Christine Mayor.
Hi, everyone. Christine Mayer with DDOT. I'm the Interim Associate Director for Multimodal Safety Engineering. And I will pass it to Commissioner Amin.
Hi, Christine. Thanks for remembering me. I met Cartham. Cartham, you remember me? This is my first meeting team, so thank you. I met Cartham a couple of weeks ago. He ushered an event that we had with Vision Zero, and I wanted to attend the meeting, so thank you for having me. As Christine said, I'm an ANC commissioner in 5B04, and I also chair the Transportation Planning Board Citizens Advisory Commission. But I'm also, even though I don't identify with it at this point because it's under treatment, and I'm doing quite well. I've also been diagnosed with severe glaucoma. And so my vision is being monitored very carefully by a team of people. So I'm very honored to be here with you this evening. Oh, and I will pass it to, I think, Peter.
Hi, everyone. Peter Steppen, Attorney Advisor for the District Office of Disability Rights. And apologies for joining a few minutes late, so I will pass it back to Karthik for anyone who hasn't introduced.
Perfect. So I think we've got, Adrian. Adrian, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Adrian Morrison. I am a person with a disability due to a severe visual impairment. Like Karthik, I can't drive. I'm a federal civil rights attorney. And I just joined the group because of issues I've seen regarding motorized vehicles in the sidewalks and people leaving them all over the sidewalks and, things of that nature.
Okay, great. So thanks, everyone. So we can probably just go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. So our agenda today, we've got, here we go. Make sure that shows up. Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, so I will put, Neha, can you put the link to this document in the chat? But first, just a kind of recap of our June minutes of essentially what we had talked about. We talked about, make sure that shows up in the screen. Yeah, perfect. Okay. We talked about in June. We had an announcement about the wheelchair accessible vehicle pilot with for-hire vehicles. We talked through some proposals for resolutions, 3 of which we passed. Those resolutions focused on one, requesting GDOT provide materials and consult us on all capital projects that hadn't been done in the past. 2, or kind of systematically in the past. 2, we requested folks, if there was a hand up, feel free to just go ahead and unmute yourself at any point. And 3, request GDOT to do an audit of, so sorry. First, MAAC requested GDOT provide materials and consult us on all capital projects. Capital projects are GDOT's largest projects, where very often multi-million-dollar projects that oftentimes go through without kind of a full equity review, and kind of really important for us to give that to give our feedback. 2, justify left turn conflicts with pedestrians in the central business district. Left turn movements are super dangerous, and this is, we've talked about this as an opportunity for us to hear about these and really kind of dig into kind of why left turn movements are kind of still allowed in places that have high pedestrian volumes like the central business district. And then 3, requesting DDOT to do a citywide audit of all sightlines. DC has a series of laws around where parking is allowed to be in the district. If they're just a quick primer for folks that aren't aware. We want to avoid things like this. I've got a queued up picture of this just to bring everybody up to speed. Because today we have a guest from DDOT, Christine, who's able to join us. We can talk about our efforts. So here is kind of an illustration of where there's a sightline that's being obstructed by parking, by legalized parking. The sign placement of this, so essentially kind of the reason why something like this is so dangerous is that this bus is parked right up against this crosswalk. And the problem with this is that anybody who is trying to cross the street won't be seen by an oncoming vehicle. So this is Virginia. This is on the corner of 4th Street Southwest and Virginia Ave Southwest. And so if you imagine like someone walking down this street, walking southbound on 4th Street Southwest, their view of them is being obstructed by this bus, who's been instructed to park by this sign all the way up against this crosswalk. And this can kind of yield some pretty horrific results. There was recently, this spring, there was a horrific crash that involved an NYPD tow truck because they allowed parking up close to a stop sign. And there was a young child and his mother, where the young child was run over and instantly killed by this NYPD pickup truck because the NYPD pickup truck wasn't able to see the child start crossing the street because of this parking. So luckily we have a series of laws in DC municipal regulations where the amount of space where somebody is not allowed to park is regulated. So that's 40 feet from the intersection of curb lines for an intersection, and then 15 feet for stop signs and yield signs. And kind of these are in place in order to keep these kind of horrific crashes from happening. But like kind of several places around the district, or a lot of places around the district, these kind of rules aren't being followed. And there are two ways that this can happen. It can, we can either have an unsafe result in one way that where the actual sign is instructing someone that they can park in a place that is actually illegal to park. So we need to it's very important that at the very least we move the sign so that we're in compliance with the law. And more importantly, people are not being instructed to break the law that makes people unsafe. And then the second way that this could happen is if the sign is in the right place, but it's easy for someone to break the law on their own. So they park in an illegal parking spot where it's obstructing the view of people, obstructing the view of the drivers. And this can be solved by what's called hardened daylighting. So oftentimes there's scooter corrals that are placed in these areas to block off and kind of keep people from parking in these kind of very sensitive areas. This is what's called hardened daylighting. Or in Europe, they very often use just rocks to just block off just any way to physically block off people from parking in these areas. But really kind of coming back to there are two things that we need to do. Like one, government needs to kind of start following the law, part one, and part two is we need to take this affirmative step of also preventing a rogue person from parking very close to a stop sign or an intersection, and then functionally making a street and an intersection wildly unsafe. The reason that this is kind of particularly important for us in the kind of for folks with disabilities is oftentimes people in wheelchairs are lower to the ground. So they're, this is kind of a really bad, example of this because, the obstruction, the bus is very tall, and for anyone in a wheelchair is lower to the ground, so they're even less likely to be seen by a driver. Second part, though, is that people oftentimes, if you're on crutches or have any sort of disability that makes your crossing time longer, you're moving slower. So kind of it's another another reason why you're more at risk, or we are more at risk, and why it's even more important for the government to kind of not only follow the law, but also make it impossible for people to break the law. So this is kind of the latest. This is the last of our 3 resolutions that we passed. And luckily, we've invited the folks from curbside management, kind of the team that oversees parking, to the meeting, but I don't think they were able to make it. But our friend Christine from DDOT is able to make it. She works on or formerly with Vision Zero. It seems like she got a promotion, so congratulations, Christine. So yeah, would love to kind of hand it over to you to talk about what we're hoping to do about sightlines.
And hi, Mr. Chair. If I may, Christine, before you start, I know Christine, her original reason for being here was to talk about roadway safety audits and how to get the MAAC involved in that process when we plan for our projects, especially on our high injury network corridors. Christine can definitely touch on sight lines. I will say that, especially from curbside in our division, we would say that the government is following the law. In terms of signage, there of course could be some rogue signs in place. And I've sent a service request to curbside to have that particular sign looked at. But I just wanted to make that statement before Christine talks to us. Thank you all.
Great, thanks, Zach.
Yeah, thanks. I can touch on that briefly about sightlines. So like Zach said, the law was passed, but we had thousands and thousands of signs in place. We are working through various projects, spot treatments, overall to try and bring all of those signs up to compliance and have that those sight lines there. This particular intersection that you noted, Kartik, is signalized. And so, yes, there is still the need to provide that daylighting and adjust the signage. We would not typically see people, under regular circumstances crossing against the light. However, we do recognize that people make mistakes, don't always follow the signals, and may cross when they don't have the crossing sign for them. So we are still working through intersection by intersection to try and bring those signs to where they should be for each location. So yeah, and we work through TSIs, we work through corridor projects. TSIs is traffic safety inputs. That's our responsive program to residents and stakeholders in the district, where people can tell us where they would like safety treatments for our engineers to take a look at the safety treatments that are needed or requested, or just the problems that you all are experiencing on the roadways. And we only have limited capacity to do that, but we try to be data driven and responsive through that program. So, some of these smaller treatments that could be done sooner don't have to wait until like a large capital project or something to come through.
So we have got, sorry to interrupt, we have gotten kind of conflicting information on like kind of the process so we know so TSI is the traffic safety investigation or input process. Like it seems like we were being directed to that first for sightline issues, but then now it's roadway signs. I think TSIs are probably the not the appropriate place to put this, given that yeah.
Right. If there's something like new, then that's your place for a TSI. Like if a new stop sign, if you want us to investigate speeding on a corridor or something like that, we do look at sight lines while we are at a location to make sure that the signs are all where they need to be, and that there's clear sight lines all across any of the marked crosswalks and intersections. So we're doing that in the process. If it is just moving the sign, then yes, that is a roadway sign question.
Yep. So I also want to note, it's not just the pedestrians crossing against the light, but it's also people taking a right turn on red.
Yeah.
So luckily, hopefully we're going to be in place to follow the law on January 1st, 2025, so that, it is banned. We have signage up where right turn on red is banned, so that, or at least for most intersections. But yeah, that particular, I've just seen that Naomi, who's another MAAC council member, has also kind of remarked on this particular street, where this is very unsafe. And this is it just seems like this is one area where we should we could do a pretty quick citywide audit, and just move the sign, so that it's not this is, it just seems like this is kind of a no-brainer to just get done and check the box. but
yeah, things aren't always what they seem. Sure, should be easy, seems easy. Yes, definitely on its surface. We have to work within the constraints of the systems that we have and the processes that we have, and with the staff time and contracting and budget that we have as well. But we are still, like I said, working through all of these locations and trying to get them up to speed. The no turn on red is a whole other can of worms. So council actually didn't fund us to do any signs or any outreach or campaigns on it. So we're having to use our existing funds to accommodate all of those signs. We've got about 1,700, I want to say, signalized intersections. And some of those already have existing no turn on red. Some of them have a time-based no turn on red. So we're going to have to use a good chunk of money to try and get all of those intersections and all the approaches signed appropriately for all of those. So in the next month or two, you should see a citywide NOI, a notice of intent, come out from us. And that will have a map of locations. It'll go out to all ANCs, all council members because of the new law. That is one step that we're going to take for outreach and engagement. We're hoping to work with local media to get some earned media stories, so we don't have to pay them for ads or anything. And we'll push it out through our social media channels, press release, and so on, just to try and get some traction on that education. But it's really unfortunate. Like, we could have done a lot more with a little bit of funding to get that even wider spread, do radio spots or whatever.
I mean, this is something that we can potentially, like, do you have a sense of how much, because we could pass a resolution and bring this up. Do you have a sense of how much would be helpful?
I can look at what we put in our financial impact statement. That's, some of you may not know, but when legislation is passed that impacts DDOT's budget or staff or whatever, we typically do a fiscal impact statement and submit that to council with their review of the final budget, and it goes to OCF, like a couple other financial institutions within district government. So we'll just have to take a look at that, and I could get back to you, or Zach could give that number to him.
Hey, Christine, this is Kelly Mack with a quick question. And that is, can you share out to the MAAC the links or the names of where to report when we see things like sightline issues? I'm wondering if we, the MAAC, should kind of compile guidance, because I admit I get confused about what DDOT word means, what I understand it to be, and where to report things to make it most efficient for you all.
Sure, yeah, we can share the links. I'll put that in the chat, or and then
I can put it in.
You got it? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
No problem. And are you all ready to talk a little bit about road safety audits? If not, I can wait. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. All right. I have a couple slides. Let's see. Okay. Is my screen visible to folks?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So one thing that is maybe lesser known that DDOT does, and we've recently kind of revamped the process and started doing them more frequently, are road safety audits. So road safety audits, they are an official Federal Highway Administration process for examining safety issues, either existing or like a risk or a perception along a street or roadway within the jurisdiction. It is formal. There's an official process for this. Its focus is on safety. So this is where we would catch things like, oh, this parking sign isn't quite in the right location, or this pedestrian signal doesn't have an APS device, a push button so people can hear when they need to cross the street, and so on. We typically have the road safety audit team. They need to be independent from the design team or the planning team for that project. So we typically employ contractors to run this work, or if it's another team doing this work, from bus priority or bicycle lanes or long range planning, we will typically work with them, conduct the road safety audit for them, and then provide all of the comments and issues that were brought up. And we do seek a multidisciplinary team. So we want to have law enforcement. We invite our DPW folks, urban forestry, range of folks across transit agencies. We invite WMATA to a lot of them. And community stakeholders. Often we've involved the ANC because we tend to do these on active projects. We want there to be kind of a pipeline for all of these recommendations to go to. We don't want them to just kind of sit on the shelf. So we would like you all to be a part of our audit teams if that is of interest to you. And so what we do in a road safety audit is consider the safety of all users, including folks with disabilities. We examine the interaction of roadway users in different times of the day, different roadway elements, how the signal timing is, where are people crossing, maybe there isn't a crosswalk and there should be one. We identify safety issues and then proactively consider and recommend mitigation measures at locations. The initial safety walk is just identifying all of the problem areas. And then we work with through the process, we work with the actual designing group to identify countermeasures. So that's the kind of collaboration between the two teams. Typically the steps, we have a project already in mind. So the first one is generally done. We set up the team. We've got an active kind of mailing list that we include for everyone to get involved. Then we have a startup meeting. Just in respect of everyone's time, we typically do those on site, and it takes about 15 minutes. At the beginning, we'll start at a starting point along the corridor, talk through what we're going to do that day, what to look for. We'll go and walk or roll the area at different times of day. We like to do it in the morning peak period to see kind of rush hour conditions. We like to do it in the evening to see PM rush hour conditions, usually like a weekend or a midday condition as well is preferable. And sometimes if people can't make it, the community, especially for that specific area, if they can't make it out to the road safety audit, any of those times, then we'll hold a virtual if that's requested, where we can kind of, using Street View, walk down the corridor. After that, we conduct an analysis and prepare the report. We present that and share it with the designing entity, whatever that is, if that's the bus team or others, and then prepare the response. The team has to prepare a response when they get to concept level and incorporate any of the changes within their design. I won't go down the list of all of these audit prompts, but there's a huge list as part of the official FHWA guidance. But there's, if people don't know what to look for in different locations, this helps guide people on what to look for, what to ask, what to note on different conditions. So the image here down on the bottom right is showing Minnesota Avenue, and we specifically noted that there's some overgrowth of vegetation along Minnesota Avenue on the sidewalk there. So that's one. So it starts with the physical environment. Then it goes to traffic control devices. So we look at signs, pavement markings, kind of relevant for the daylighting conversation. We look at signals, how long
Christine,
does it take?
Sorry to interrupt. I think, is it okay if people jump in?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Lizzie.
Yeah, Christine, sorry to interrupt you. I lowered my hand because I started to realize that you were going to continue with the additional list, but I'll just put my question out there and you can tell me if you're going to get there. But I was just quickly scanning the previous slide and this slide, and I'm wondering if you're going to be able to call out for us specifically what aspects of the audit list pertain to like ADA compliance and accessibility features, and you might be headed there, but Anyways, so I'll pause.
Yep. Yeah, and this isn't the full list. We tried to grab kind of major categories. But for instance, this one first, go back to that one for signals. Are they accessible for people with vision disabilities? Do we have the audible pedestrian buttons, excuse me, that people can push to know? Are we seeing people yield to those crossing? So how long does it take? Is the timing long enough for people to get across the street that maybe need more time? Interactions, the operations, roadway behaviors, all of those things. And there's many more. If you see something on this list, or if you don't see something on the list, always good to include that as well. We don't limit ourselves to this. It's just to help inform the conversation as we're going through the corridor.
Yeah, so things that, for instance, that I'm not seeing are curb cuts, angles, slope, width, and sorry, I'm on my phone, so I'm like trying to zoom.
No, these are really tiny. I can send you the slides afterwards if that's helpful.
Yeah, I just think, you know, most folks on this call will probably agree if intentionality around accessibility specific questions really matter. And when things aren't laid out explicitly, like, you know, at this grade, this slope, you know, a curb cut with, you know, no more than a inch of barrier, right? Like, I'm just speaking off the cuff, but that we end up with passageways that are ultimately not accessible. And you mentioned, you mentioned rolling when going on these audits. So I'm also curious about any intentionality around including individuals with disabilities in the audits. Over.
Yeah, that's why I'm here tonight. I would love for you all to be involved and be able to come. We do invite all kinds of folks across the agency and other agencies, but we do realize that one blind spot that a lot of us have, or area that we don't really, we're not as aware of, especially for the transit folks that come and some of the operations folks, they don't have that experience, the ones that typically attend. So we do want you all to attend if you're able to, or if you can recommend others that would be able to. We're trying to just build our list of folks so that we do have more of a multidisciplinary team. There's a couple questions in here. ADA ramps are in good condition. If the crosswalks line up, some things relevant for PROAG guidance and different things across the list. But yeah, I hear you about, we do look at tripping hazards as well, and the separation between like blocks in the sidewalk or tree roots coming up, all of those are relevant. Yeah. Okay. So let's see, operations, interactions, and behaviors. Posted signs, are people able to access bus stops? Is it safe to get to bus stops or metro stations? What are the conflicts between people walking and biking if it's on the sidewalk or shared use path? Is it too narrow for people to walk you know, pass side by side, or have a wheelchair and a pedestrian pass, different things like that, or all things that we look at. Freight is also a consideration here. Competing demands for curb space, that's a really popular one that we see as well. So a current one that we had that's active, we've done a number of these so far, Southern Avenue, Marion Barry Avenue, Benning Road, 14th Street, Florida Avenue. So we're just trying to build on those, and we tend to focus them all on the high injury network. We do have limited staff and limited budget for this. So the priority here is to really focus this effort on projects that are on the high injury network. So 14th Street is an active project. So we often, because there's high overlap with bus priority and Vision Zero, high injury network, the safety branch is a partner in developing the road safety audits. So you all are aware of all of these, why we do safety audits by now, but achieving Vision Zero to make it easier and safer to get to multimodal options for travel and so on. The overlap between the high entry network and the bus priority corridors especially is really, really high. Georgia Avenue is a huge one. Wisconsin Avenue is on there, Rhode Island, H Street in Benning, Minnesota Avenue, pieces of Southern Avenue in Alabama as well. I won't go too far into detail, but here's an example. Florida Avenue was one that we did. And that's a tier 1 high entry network corridor. Focusing on that, and we had a few road safety audit walks, as well as a virtual one with the community. I believe this one's still active if folks are familiar with 14th Street and you want to give some feedback on it. I know the bus bulbs that were designed and built back in 2018 or 2020 can be a challenge. So please, we've noted that in the field, but please do comment if you have experience with that corridor. And then that's all I have. I can take questions.
Hi, Christine. This is Kelly Mack again. This is great, really interesting, and I think that the MAAC would be interested in helping. And another thought is when you put out the call to your council member, maybe specifically ask for community members with disabilities to participate. And I'm wondering if you want to maybe add a few other ways to participate, because I'm just thinking to myself, hey, I'd be really interested, but I work during the day. Not sure I could do a daytime, but maybe I could go out on a weekend and then provide some email feedback or other feedback later. Or if you identify, hey, we think these areas are certain problems, can you guys take a closer look and let us know? I'm just thinking maybe there's other ways to kind of get, I think everyone has different schedules nowadays, so it might be hard to get people on site at the same time, I guess is what I'm saying. But
yeah,
this is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Kelly. So we do hold weekend ones often, or virtual meetings that are after the work day is over.
That's great. That's
and what we
great.
do throughout all of them is always set up these online feedback maps. So if you want to go out there on your own, or you have some specific things that have just been like really nagging at you for a while on 14th Street or whatever street that we're focused, you can put those in anytime. And we're happy to, we usually keep it open about 2 to 3 weeks afterwards. We are keeping this one open a little bit longer because we're in the summer and we realize people take vacations. So yeah, that's another chance to provide feedback. And all of that is summarized and put into the report.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know who was first.
I'm gonna go with Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Christine, for this is fantastic information. And I'm in the Office of Disability Rights, so we work with DDOT all the time as partners. I'd love to work with you more on this, and I can connect you as well to additional groups and resources. So that'd be great. I'd love to talk offline.
Great, thank you. I'll reach out.
I think I'm next, so I'll chime in. I just want to, again, I echo everyone's appreciation for you coming and providing this. This was extremely insightful. I love Kelly's idea about the asynchronous approach to this. I think that that's going to reduce a lot of barriers for different folks to participate and weigh in. And I put it in the chat, but I'll just give it an audible as well, which is that just again, from quickly skimming the categories and some of these prompts that you've been going through, I think our committee could provide you a handful of questions that are very much accessibility focused for each of those categories. And that way, even in the absence of a person who identifies with a disability or might, be able to represent, for instance, a mobility disability or a vision disability, et cetera, for a given audit that we're setting the auditors that are participating up to, be thinking and being prompted to be thinking, kind of thinking through the lens of a person who might have, experienced some of those barriers. So just throwing that out there, I personally would be very happy to chime in if you're up for that feedback. That's a really low lift, and to me feels like an opportunity to institutionalize some of these frameworks and ways of thinking. Over.
Yeah, absolutely. The prompt list that we have is based on the FHWA full prompt list. Some jurisdictions, some states will have their own road safety audit process. And I'm happy we're kind of in development of that, realizing that maybe the FHWA process needs to be a bit more from an urban context that we have in a lot of our cities. So happy to have any questions that you'd like to add, and we can add those. We typically have these kind of base set of slides that I showed a little bit before with all of the prompts in those, but happy to add the ADA section and really pull out and make that a focus. Yeah.
Perfect. So what is the best way for us to stay or kind of plug in? Do you want should we try to be represented on at each one of these and try to send people in person? What would your preference be?
Yeah, ideally, I'll follow up with Peter and see if other folks who, this is their day job could also represent. But if you are able to go, we'll add you to our mailing list. So anytime we do a road safety audit, you'll get in like a notice or a calendar hold or something. If you're not able to go to that one, no problem. We can, at least you'll get all the information and you'll be on our mailing list. If you have questions about those, Syra Molina is our staff member who kind of leads the whole program for RSAs and schedules them and tries to make sure everyone's there. So she would be your main point of contact to let her know if you have any needs for any of those walks or the engagement afterwards. Yeah.
That sounds great. And then we actually just started doing a newsletter. So this is actually a kind of perfect item to put in the newsletter for, perfect. This is great. Yeah, I'll echo everybody else. It's fantastic that this is happening and that we can provide input in a direct way onto a lot of unsafe roads. So really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I'll put in a plug, one coming up in the fall, because we want to sort of wait until school is back in session. We did an internal one for M Street Southwest I believe we're starting at South Capitol and looking up to maybe 6th or 7th. That's an upcoming project. It's on the Hydro Network. So we'll send you all the information for that.
Cool. It's fantastic. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Christine. Or actually, maybe just one last call. Anybody else have anything else that they'd like to ask Christine? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Christine. Really appreciate you being here and providing this update and this kind of opportunity to plug in.
No problem. Happy to have you all. And thanks for having me. Look forward to working together.
Cool. Thanks again.
Okay. Bye.
Great. Okay. Lizzie, your hand is still up. Is there anything? Is it a remnant? Okay.
Remnant. Sorry.
Yeah. Cool. So so we've talked about this at the last few meetings. I would love to be able to codify this today if folks feel comfortable doing so. Oh, I have the infinity mirror up. Sorry. We have talked about draft principles for street prioritization. So the reason why I like this idea so much is that it essentially allows us to put, every street is different. That's true. But if we put our kind of, our principles out there as to kind of what should be prioritized for a street. Obviously, certain streets might, have, there might be one particular street where, one of these, is out of order or whatever. But kind of for a generic street, like these are our principles, these are what we value, and this is how we think street space should be allocated in order for um, us to have a kind of a safe, reliable, and equitable transportation network across a district. So we've talked about this in a few different meetings, and I just wanted to kind of open up the floor to folks before we kind of actively engage on the kind of wording of the document. I just wanted to kind of gauge folks to see if how folks feel about just the idea of the document, and kind of if we're ready to start possibly even adopting a document like this today. Any thoughts?
Hey Karthik, this is Kelly. I've been in favor of this approach, and I'm definitely interested in, maybe getting, I don't know if we're at the wordsmithing stage or if we're still agreeing on ideas, but definitely interested in moving forward in whatever steps make sense for the group.
Cool.
I was wondering, is it a way that you could ever send a copy of the document out?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I thought we had done that. Let me.
I don't know. Maybe you've done it. I didn't get it. I got a lot of emails, but
there we go.
Like if you could send a.
Yep. So it's now in the chat. So if you go to the right-hand side of your screen, there are 4 icons. The icon that is second to the right, there's a little like chat box icon, and it's the last. And I just put it in the chat. All right, I'm sorry, I just put the link to this document in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, Lizzie, how do you feel about potentially adopting something like this today?
Do we have a quorum? I know that we don't have Naomi.
So we do have a quorum because we've got 3 members here.
Okay.
So.
I think my preference, I would say let's get close, but I would recommend it gets circulated and folks are given X amount of time in their personal space to review and sit with it. I just fear, it's sometimes hard to do these in a group setting. So that would be my ask. I think we can get it close today. Yeah. But I know I personally, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, I personally would like to just sit with it and mull it over on my own a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I had asked for it, just to get a chance to sort of look at it and be able to, like you said, look it over, and then provide any feedback. And I guess at the end, before you finalize, you can sort of get everybody's feedback, and then you can kind of make the final copy. And then I guess that seemed like it would be a good time to say, let's move forward with this. If that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, that sounds great. So how about this? How about we we'll send this out after this meeting again, or well, actually Neha, if we can send this out in the kind of follow-ups to this meeting with an action item, just saying, we're hoping to finalize this at the next meeting. Folks can comment. Anyone with the link can comment, can add a comment to any of these. So maybe at the next meeting, we can just adjudicate the comments and then adopt it. So basically, the action item for everyone is just to go through it on your own time between now and August. I don't actually have the exact date. Whenever the second Wednesday is in August. And yeah, make comments on the document itself. And then during the why is that? Your session has expired. Sorry, I don't know why that happened. There we go. Yeah, yeah. So then folks can, yeah, if you make comments directly into the document, and yeah, there we are. Directly into the document, and then at the next meeting, hopefully we can just kind of all together sit and discuss each of the comments, and then either adopt them or or merge them in, or however we want to do that for each, and then we can pass it. For I mean, I wonder if there's any use. So we do have a few more minutes of just kind of going through our current, the first, the text around this is kind of a lot of preamble, or kind of, we can wordsmith this, but I think the meat of this document is the prioritization. So basically, the fact that, that as of now, our number one prioritization is pedestrian, a high quality, connected, smooth pedestrian infrastructure, and then dedicated public transit way, and then ADA pickup, et cetera. So that's where I think, and obviously you can comment on anything that you see, but that in particular is something that I think once we can codify and get on paper, and make pretty, and then that's gonna really help us weigh in on a lot of different projects, to say that, hey, this either conforms or does not conform to our principles at the MAAC. So yeah, we do have a few minutes, but I'm also not opposed to wrapping up early. But yeah, do folks want to, are there any discussions on kind of where we are right now? Would that be helpful? Or do folks just want to kind of take this back home and mull, and then have a kind of our final discussion next week or next month?
Hey, Karthik, two comments. I wanted to bring up the Wave accessible cab pilot
Yes,
when
please.
we're done with this discussion. But
Yep.
before we conclude, I just want to put it out there. I do want time to mull, but I'm wondering if some of the later points, if we want to drop in the aid of being really focused and purposeful on
Yeah.
maybe 1 to 4, 1 to 5 things. Just
Yeah.
putting that out there for people to think about, because sometimes impact comes with focus. So just a
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, I've thought about that too. That's a great. It's kind of. I'm glad you called that out. That's something that, and I'll take that back too, and really think about. Hey, like if we were to come up with a condensed set of prioritizations, something more pithy than this, where we just straight into the point without a lot of potentially distracting detail. Yeah, no, it's a great point. Okay, cool. So I think then let's close this. Let's close discussion on this, and then folks can kind of take this back and mull over this document more, and then we'll reconvene next month on it. But yeah, so now we'll just move into general discussions and announcements. So we'll start with Kelly on the Wave pilot.
Thanks so much. I just wanted to flag that the pilot is still ongoing, and it would be really good if people with disabilities, I think it's particularly impactful for people who use wheelchairs or have mobility disabilities, to try out the pilot. I think it is going another month or two, and I myself have tried it out 4 times, and unfortunately have had 3 out of 4 failures in getting service. And I think it's really important, and I sent that feedback back to the Department for Hire Vehicles, and I think it's really important that they hear these stories and the details so that we can pin down some actions for improvement, because this has been such a long-standing complex problem and it's really impacting mobility for wheelchair users in particular. So, but the other part of this is that next week is the next meeting for the Department for Hire Vehicles Accessibility Advisory Council. And I invite anyone to attend and to give feedback if they've used the pilot, or just to listen and see what the discussions are like. I'll drop the link for the page in the chat here. There's someone you need to email in order to get the meeting link, or feel free to email me because I'm your friendly neighborhood wheelchair user, and I'd be happy to send you the meeting link. So whatever people are comfortable with, but definitely use the pilot. I'll drop the pilot link in there too, because it's got an email where you can send feedback, and I really encourage, the more feedback, the better. It'll be more useful for them. So thanks for the 2 minute.
Yeah, totally. And Neha, maybe we can put this, or it would be great actually to put this in the newsletter as well, so this this can go out. Both the Wave pilot and also the um, the Community Advisory Council meeting for the FHV. Yes, the FHV. Perfect. Anybody else? Anybody else? Kind of general discussion, open forum.
I guess it's just a general spot, I think, in or thought in context of the DOT meeting or DDOT meeting next month. Just, I think, keeping eyes and ears open to opportunities to be elevating our messages up through channels like that, whether those are conferences, meetings, etc. And, you know, obviously we're not going to be available for everything, but visibility goes a long way.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great call out. Perfect.
And I think, I guess on that note, you know, working as one committee on our materials, thinking about how, like, if folks are giving presentations, share those materials back so others can pull from them, that we can become echo chambers, right, in a good way, or I guess like sounding, whatever, you know what I mean? The analogy to like raise like a consistent message up, and that we can collectively be refining and strengthening those messages. So just think about mechanisms to do that. Think about opportunities, like if you're going to be presenting, to send your slides in advance to this group, their feedback, that sort of thing.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, the more that, so if folks can, the website has gotten a lot better, actually, thanks to Neha's work. So, you know, that can be a great repository of materials. And I think once we start putting, now it has all the recordings and all of the meeting minutes, but kind of starting to, you know, especially if we get these principles like this, that potentially could be a great way to start every presentation, as, you know, something that we believe. And, you know, oftentimes, you know, it's very obvious that, you know, like our vision is not matched by facts on the ground, or, you know, facts on the ground are nowhere near our vision. It's kind of a nice way to segue into, hey, this is what, like, you know, needs to urgently change if we want to live up to our values. So yeah, absolutely. Kind of larger point of just being able to share, putting materials in a repository together, so that we can kind of really start to kind of amplify each other's voices, and yeah, get our message out there for sure, 100%.
I have a prep call tomorrow for that August meeting I'll be presenting at, and just like very high
Cool.
level, my vision for that presentation is to try to get some data pulled on essentially heat maps of a few like intersectional identities across DC to the degree that we can, related to income level, disability identity, et cetera, to try to essentially be showing that these things overlap, they're intersectional, and that there are hot areas
Totally.
of the city. And then like in my really ideal world, I want to do a couple outings and actually just go do some videos and take some photos from public transport, public transit stops in those areas, as well as sidewalks, and
Yeah.
just actually go through a few case studies. Because I think, those sorts of examples speak more than, a million words can, to the degree of like, this is actually what it looks like in reality. And let's think about the people who live here and how infrastructural barriers prevent people from engaging in society and economy, et cetera. So that's where my head is at. It's obviously like I need to get my hands on some data and some maps and everything else, but otherwise I think it's sort of like one of those stories that'll tell itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anything that anything that I can do to support, and that we can do together, be thrilled. So I'll also note that we do have a small budget. So we have each year we get $10,000. Primarily, it's used to pay for admin time, but we will have money. We do have money. So if there's that's just kind of for everyone. If there's if we need signs, or if we need to put something up, we also have a few different services like Google Workspace. But if there's that, we do have some, they're obviously not huge, but we do have some resources. So these are the types of things that if individual, so like Lizzie, yeah, this is awesome. Like if you've got an idea, like let's do it. Like this is exactly the type of stuff that we should do.
Sounds good. I'll noodle on that.
Neha, go for it.
Yeah, also, since we have that budget, we also now have a FedEx account that we can use for printing and a lot of materials. And I have our account set up for us. So if anybody wanted to use that and print something out, I have access to that as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. So I think then, anybody else kind of last call for comments, questions, thoughts?
Yeah, Catherine, this is Raw. Thanks everyone. This was absolutely great. Actually, so my comment and question. So DC BAAC's meeting is this evening, and I have both of them on my schedule, but MAAC was first, and then once I got here, I didn't want to leave, so now they're overlapping. So my question is, does this happen? Is BAAC and MAAC often on the same evening? And I know PAC was this week too. So does this happen BAAC and MAAC on the same evening, like overlapping? Because it would make it difficult for me to attend both.
Yeah.
Do you know?
It's not ideal. I've been waiting actually for the four of us. We haven't had all four of us together on the same call. So I've been waiting for that to happen, where we can just set a new meeting time. It's not ideal that we're overlapping with BAAC, and I would like to change it, but I don't want to change it until we have consensus or kind of unanimity on a new time.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's just that I'm interested in all of it, and and I want to attend as many meetings as I possibly can. So I just wanted to just see whether or not that was going to be a personal problem for me, because maybe it's just me. So thank you.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the only thing I would say with the BAAC, sometimes their general meetings are usually the first Wednesday of the month. Sometimes it changes, and the BAAC also have a number of different committees that also may conflict, but I just want to throw that out there because we chose the MAAC time based on, DFHV's meeting schedule to avoid the PAC and definitely to avoid the BAAC, but I think the BAAC sometimes they set meetings, and
The,
that's
the
just
back the back goes rogue. Yeah, I kind of noticed that from their emails. But the meetings are like all over the place, and
It's
so
not, yeah,
I'm trying to keep up. So yeah, so glad.
it's
Thank
not
you,
as
Zachary. It's just
consistent.
not me. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, great. Anything else? Kind of last call. All right. Well, thanks everybody. So this will conclude our July meeting for the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council. Thanks everybody for joining. We will see you on the second Wednesday of August at 5:30 for our August meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all.